All right, everybody. Well, welcome to day 2 of Strabo2 demo webinar meeting. Today is the nitty-gritty day. We're going to basically go through setting up a project, getting some maps, and looking at your data in the notebook and displaying your data. So that's going to be where we're at today. If you've got your Strabo2 installed, Strabo2 installed, you'll probably want to follow along. Be especially nice, of course, if you have your own data coming in. So we're going to start out today with basically just how to set up a Strabo Spot project. If you've used Strabo1, it's similar, but not exactly the same. And it's a good refresher for everyone. So Nick is going to lead us through that. Nick.
All right. Great. So I am going to show a little bit about what I do when I'm trying to get ready for the field using Strabo2. And the first step is to start a brand new project if you don't already have a project that you're working on. And I'll demo all of this stuff after this so we can all do it together and follow along on your own iPads. But the basic idea is that in the home menu, you go to My Strabo Spot, and there's a button right here to start a new project. And when you do that, you get some info that you can input, such as a project name, the start and end date, and some notes about that project. The second step, and I think this is really important, especially if you're doing a more complicated long-term project, is just deciding how you're going to organize the data sets. So I mentioned this briefly a little bit yesterday, but data sets are groupings within a project of data, and they can help you organize that data within a project. You can only add data to one data set at a time, although in the field, you can choose which data set you're adding to, and you can change that as often as you'd like. And the active data set is denoted by this blue check mark next to one of the data sets. So some ideas for organizing data sets are one data set per subfield area, one data set per field season. If you have multiple iPads all working on the same login on the same project, you can do one data set per person in the field. Those are examples of organizations for data sets. But it's completely up to you how you use data sets. The third step is to go into the naming conventions in your settings and preferences and put in a spot prefix label and a sample prefix label and a starting number for those samples. So this allows you to not have to manually name your stations each time. Although you don't have to use this. If you'd prefer to manually name stations each time, that's totally fine. And you can come back in here at any time in the field. Let's say that you're counting upwards and you're at number 41, but then you want to add an unnamed or a differently named station. You can come back in here and say, actually reset it to start at 41, not keep counting each time. So I always do that just to keep the spot names and the sample names kind of meaningful to my specific project. And then the fourth step is, for many, probably the most time consuming, and that's to set up any custom maps that you have. So we have several ways, and Doug will go into more detail about this in a little bit, but we have several ways to get custom base maps into Strabo. Probably the easiest is if you can create your base map and convert it into a geotiff. It can be uploaded to your StraboSpot.org account, and then all you need is a little item key that you can plug in down here, and that map will appear, and you can download it offline and all that stuff. If you want to do kind of more complex base maps, you can use Mapbox Studio. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's a kind of a service run by Mapbox where you can add you can use one of their built-in base layers, but then superimpose shapefiles and other geologic maps, and you don't have to convert everything to raster images or geotiffs. So that's a kind of more advanced tool that you can use to bring in your maps. And the third is if you have like old PDF scans of maps, you can use a service called Map Warper, and that will georeference those and then provide you with a key from which you can draw that map as a tiled map and download it for offline use. So I use my workflow personally is that I use QGIS to build all of my base maps, hillshades, or geologic maps that I want. And then I export from QGIS as a geotiff and use the my maps at strabo2.org. And then finally, before you go out into the field where presumably you won't have good internet connectivity, you want to download the maps for offline use. And that is done directly on the map using the map actions button, these 3 dots. And when you select for offline use, you'll get a little modal where you can choose the zoom level. And so what will happen, you'll see if you zoom out to a very large area, you'll have to end up downloading a lot of tiles. So you want to make sure you're on a good internet connection. But you can do that for each base map that you want to have access to offline. And I'll just take a break. Mike is asking to what extent you can change the data set structure after the fact. We don't have the ability to move individual spots between data sets, but you can always add data sets as you go. So there's nothing set in stone about how many data sets you can have. You can start with one, and then maybe the next field season you decide you want to start a new one, you can just start it then. You don't have to start them all at the beginning. And then finally, step 6, I like to predefine any tags that I know that I'm going to use in the field. And the big one for this is the geologic unit tags. If I am working off of a base map that has, it's been a well-mapped area that has geologic unit names, it's really useful to create those tags and input those names so that in the field you just get to say, this is quaternary, whatever unit you're working on. If you also happen to know something about either the structural evolution, or that there's several generations of features that you're going to want to use tags on, you can also do those tags, not geologic unit tags, but other kinds of tags. Okay, so now I'm going to stop sharing this and I'll share my iPad and kind of walk through what starting a project looks like. And with this, feel free to butt in on the chat if you have any questions. As I'm going to try to go a little bit slowly to walk so that people can follow along. But as always, this is being recorded, so you can look on YouTube when it's posted, probably tomorrow. Okay, so here I am in Strabo. I've logged in. If you've logged in for the first time, you'll get prompted to start a new project. But if you already have a project, then you can open up the settings and preferences in the top left and hit My Strabo Spot. And there you have the option right here to start a new project. So when you do that, it will pop up with a warning, and it's just saying the project that you currently have loaded is going to be overwritten unless you back it up. And you have some options right there to back up project to device or back up project to server. And I'm going to overwrite this project because it's just an empty project that I started for this webinar. So here on the left, you have the project info. And so I'm going to create a project name and put in some notes. And then at the bottom here, it says Save New Project. So then it takes you to that active project screen on the left. And in order to start adding data, you need to turn the default data set to on. And so in the data set, it says 0 spots and 0 of 0 images needed. It's completely empty. If I want to edit my project description, I can tap here at active projects right up here. And there I have even a little access to a little bit more granular detail for that project. And I also have the option down here to make the project public once I upload it to strabo2.org. This button is, it can go both ways, so you can turn it on, but then you can also turn it off. So once you make it public, it's not necessarily permanently public. Okay, so now I have an active project loaded, and I'll just wait a brief minute to let people catch up, or if you have any questions, let me know. Okay, so the next step is to decide how I'm going to organize the data sets. And the project comes with something called default. That's the default data set. You can edit the name of that by tapping on the on this gray pencil. If I tap on that, I can just simply edit that name or delete that data set. So I'll call it dataset 1, and I'll save that. So now I've changed the name of that. And if I want to add additional data sets, then I will tap add, the blue add to the right of project data sets. And I can say dataset 2. And by default, when you add new data sets, they're off, but you can toggle them on. And this is a point of clarification here. These toggle switches say whether that data are displayed on the map or not. So if I were to add spots to dataset 2, and then I switch to adding spots to dataset 1, dataset 2 spots will still display until I turn untoggle dataset 2 here, and then it will disappear from the map. The way I control which dataset gets data added to it is under active datasets. So right now, the dataset that I would add data to if I added spots is dataset 2. If I want to change that, I just tap on dataset 1, and now any data that I add will be added to dataset 1. And you can double check how which data set is being added pretty easily. If you tap to add a spot down in the right-hand corner, a little window pops up and it tells you which data set is our data about to be added to. So if I tap here, it creates a spot. And now you can see on the left-hand side that there's one spot in dataset 1. Have there been any questions that have come up that I should address before I move on, Doug or Alex?
I've been typing in answers, so if people want to see more of that, they can ask up, but I've been trying to answer questions as they've come up.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do is set up the naming conventions. As you saw, when I created a spot here, the default is unnamed is the prefix for any spots. That's not very useful for me in my project. So I will go back to the settings and preferences on the left-hand side. And under preferences, there's this naming conventions. So I'll tap on that. And it's pretty straightforward, and this works the same way that it did in Strabo2. You have a prefix, and so that's for the spot. And then I want the starting number to be 1, and it will just count up from there. And for the samples, it's the same thing. And I like to put dashes in the prefix so that there's a dash before the number. And you don't have to press save there. So once I've entered this information, it's saved. And I go back. And now, if I were to add a spot, and again, I'm adding to data set 1, I tap the map to add a point spot. There it is, the station names. I just named them after myself. Terry's asking a good question. Is there a way to make the sample number the same as the spot number with maybe an option like A, B, C for multiple samples? The answer is right now, no. We've just done a kind of bare bones thing, but if there are strong suggestions, then that would be not so hard to implement. The settings and preferences is this little house icon in the top left corner. No worries. No worries. Okay, so that's how to set up sample and spot naming conventions. The next step would be to set up any custom maps that you have. So Doug is going to go into this in a little more detail, but I will show you kind of once you've done the earlier parts of the steps that Doug is going to go through. Once I'll show you how to actually get them and pull them into Strabo. So we're at the map. If you tap into settings and preferences in the top left corner, under maps, you can go to custom maps. I currently don't have any custom maps, but there's a button at the top to add new custom maps. So I'll tap that. And I'm going to pull a map in that I've already uploaded to Strabo2.org. Geologic map that is in Arizona. And I'm going to choose, so there are a few options. So one is display as overlay. This is useful if you're connected to the internet. You can actually display maps over other maps. If you want to download it for offline, right now, at least my understanding is that you need to keep this turned off. So then the next thing is that there are 3 options for the map type, and these are those map types I went over in the PowerPoint. So you can pull in from Mapbox, you can pull in from MapWarper, or you can pull in maps from Strabo Spot My Maps on Strabo2.org. That's what I'm going to do. So I'll tap Strabo Spot My Maps. Then at the bottom, it just asks for a Strabo map ID. So the way that I'm going to get that ID is by going over to my account at Strabo2.org. So this is still on my iPad. I just went to my Safari browser or whatever other browser you want, went to Strabo2.org, logged into my account, and went to account. And then here it says My Maps. So that's the page that I'm currently on. And here I have all the maps that I've loaded into my Strabo2 account. And next to the maps, you see this column, Map Codes. And I'm just going to tap this little Copy to Clipboard button. So I'll tap that. And that copies it to your iPad clipboard. And now I'm going to go back to Strabo2 and paste it in there. hit save, and that's it. So with that, I can go down on the kind of lower left-hand side, there's this map layers button. If I tap on that, now Arizona geology is an option. And if I click that, it'll zoom to that map. And there it is. So this is just a geotip that I made that I upload to strabo2.org. Got that key from the website and plugged it in my settings and preferences custom maps. Are there any questions on that? And again, Doug will go into kind of the process of getting maps into those services. All right. So step 5 is downloading maps for offline use. So this is quite simple, but you want to budget a bit of time to do it, especially if you have a big field area, because you are going to be using internet bandwidth to pull down tiles. So I like to, if possible, go into the university where they have broader broadband internet. The process is a lot faster than in my apartment. But the basic process is as follows. You use this map actions button, which is the 3 dots in the lower left-hand side. And one of the options is save map for offline use. So when you click that button, it will save the map for offline use of the current extent of your iPad. So I have a pretty broad extent right now. If I want to download an offline map of something smaller, I would just zoom into that. So, if that's where I want to go, that looks pretty good. I'll go to the map actions button, save map for offline use. And then it says select map max zoom level to download. So in general, often zoom 18, 19 is the max. I've seen higher than that. It depends where you are. If I were to click zoom 19, you see that in this area, there would be 5,608 tiles, which takes a while. So for the purpose of the example, I'm going to, I'll just do zoom 14, download 29 tiles. And I click download 29 tiles. It gathers that, it installs it, and it's done. And now I have an offline map. And a key point of clarification is that what I've just downloaded is only tiles for the current map that's displaying. So I haven't downloaded tiles for satellite or topo map or any other maps that I might have in Strabo. So what I would do, and what I usually do going into the field, is I keep that same map extent zoomed in on my iPad. I'll just change the map type if I want to also download satellite. And I just do that process again. Save map for offline use, download. It downloads the tiles, it installs them, success. And so now I have, of exactly the same extent, I have satellite imagery and my geologic map. And you can do the same for topo. We have a nice feature that allows you, even while you're connected to the internet, to preview what you've downloaded. So if you want to preview that, you go to settings and preferences up in the top left corner. You go down to manage offline maps in the maps heading. And now you can see which data sets or which maps, sorry, that you've downloaded already. And and you can also have this open. You can click download tiles of current map to do the same thing that we were just doing through the map actions button. And so it tells you for each map that you've downloaded tiles for, it tells you how many tiles, and it gives you the opportunity to delete those tiles, but you can also view what those tiles look like offline. So if I say view offline map, you have this text that makes sure you know it's the offline view. And now if I zoom out, you can see it's not, I didn't download the northern portion of this map. And I have pretty decent resolution on the portion that I downloaded offline tiles for. So this allows you to preview while you're still in the office connected to internet. It's a pretty nice feature. And then to stop viewing, you just click here, stop viewing offline maps. Are there questions about that? All right. So the last thing that I'm going to cover in this segment is how to go ahead and predefine tags. And Doug will cover this also in a little bit. So I'll just do it briefly. So again, in settings and preferences, in the upper left-hand corner, under attributes, the last entry is tags, right here. And I haven't created any tags yet, but I'll create a new tag, and I'll name it GeoUnit1, and then select the tag type geologic unit, and you can put in an abbreviation. You can also put in, and this is kind of important, some rock types. So igneous, you can say it's plutonic, and maybe it's a granite. You can also put in some geologic age information and create notes. At the end, hit save, and now you have that geologic unit tag saved. And if you want to attribute a color to it, then you can tap to show the details of that tag. To do that, sorry, you can't see my taps. I just tapped on GeoUnit1. So then this secondary menu pops up, and I can edit the tag info. I can add or remove spots to that tag, or the other way around. I can add tags to that tag to specific spots. Or in the top right-hand corner, I can actually choose a color that will represent that geologic unit. So we can choose a kind of granite-y color. So you can go through and in your field area predefine all those geologic units, and that's how you do that. Okay, are there any questions? I do want to just point out that when you back up your project to device, not only the spots get backed up and the images get backed up, but also your offline base maps get backed up. So you can back up all your offline base map tiles and then store those on a separate device, so that if in the field something happens, you need to reload or whatever, you can bring those in and you'll have access to those offline map tiles as well. Okay, there are a couple questions. What is continuous tagging? That's a great question. Continuous tagging means that, here I'll show what she means. So I go to tags. If I check on continuous tagging, it's a way to automatically tag every spot that I create from here until I turn off continuous tagging with the tags that I check. So this is often useful if, for example, I were about to enter this Monzo granite here, and I knew that I was just going to be in Monzo granite for this entire trail. Well, then I might just say, I'm just going to turn continuous tagging on. I'm going to check that geologic unit. And I can still add other tags to specific spots, but every spot that I create will have that geologic unit tag until I come back here and either uncheck that and check another geologic unit, or just turn continuous tagging off. Jordan is asking, can you download map overlays in Strabo2, or is there a way to overlay several maps with different opacities? I believe, and we can maybe Doug knows, I don't think we have support for downloading map overlays or offline map overlays. Is that right, Doug?
We don't have that, and you can only have one overlay at a time, but it does have adjustable opacity.
Yeah.
I can show that when I do the demo in a little bit. Let me just add something here real quick, Nick.
Yep.
Two other questions. One on the sample name, sample number, spot number. One thing that we did is that your sample is stored with your spot. So when you put a spot in and collect a sample, it's actually part of your spot record. So you'll have the number available that way. When we were developing this, there's a sample logging system called the International Geosample Number, or IGSN. And the sample numbering in this was built to support that so that you could collect samples in the field with your own unique IGSN ID and then be able to just simply upload those into geosamples.org. The other thing is Rip asked, can you share a base map and data set with a class? The answer is yes. And that's a few minute demo to do. I looked at the schedule. I'll do that demo tomorrow on how to do that. But the answer to that is absolutely yes. And I'll show you, we've talked a little bit about being able to airdrop projects and things. I'll go through that tomorrow.
Yeah, and then Rip is also commenting, when I want, say, a geologic map superimposed on a photo, I make a TIFF image of that in a JS program like QGIS, and then upload that. That is definitely the easiest way. So this geologic map is a DEM overlaid by a geologic map with multiplying opacity. And I did that in QGIS. And it's, those programs are really fully designed to do exactly that. So yeah, that's what we suggest.
All right. Any more questions for Nick? Nick, you ready for me to take over?
Yep.
No more questions for Nick? All right, well, go ahead.
Can you have multiple maps downloaded, but switch back and forth if you're offline?
Yes. And
so you can
go ahead.
I often do, like, I'll make a geologic map where the rock units are labeled, and then a geologic map where they're not labeled, and I'll download map tiles of both of them, and so that I can switch between them. Or you can do, like, I've been in a situation where there were Aboriginal sites, and I needed a map to avoid protected sites. I put an offline map of that as well, so I could just always make sure that I was not in an Aboriginal heritage site. So yeah, you can do as many as you want.
Perfect, thank you.
Other questions? The tag colors to show up in the map, that's a demo after the break today that I'm gonna do, and I'll do a full demo on that. Okay, well, let me go ahead and start then. I'll share my screen. We're going to look at offline maps and custom maps at this point. And just a second. So one of the things to kind of get you homed in on is that StraboSpot uses tiled maps. And you may not have thought about this very much, but when you get a map that comes into your device, it has to be downloaded somehow. And the way essentially everybody does this these days, including the USGS at this point, and any map server you use, is they have stored map tiles, which are small little squares at different sizes that contain part of the image. And those will be brought in to your device and looked at. Basically what they are is cascading image files, and they're all very, very small. Each tile that we have for the system we're using is 256 by 256 pixels. So not too big. And because of that, it can transfer huge numbers of these at a single time. And it stores on a server somewhere all these tiles. 15 years ago, servers used to kind of repackage on the fly. Nobody really does that anymore, and everybody's holding these tiles. When you use a map in your app, most apps will cache the tiles that you're looking at. So in other words, if it downloads a set of tiles for what you're working on, it'll keep those in some kind of memory cache for you. That's fine, but restarting the iPad will clear that out. Restarting any device clears that out, and then you may not have everything downloaded. So that's why we, even though a lot of these tiles are cached when you're working on it, you may not get them all for offline use. Strabo2 uses something called XYZ tiling scheme, and that's from OpenStreetMap, which is one of the first and really big tiling services out there. The other quite common tiling scheme, if you're into all of this, is something called MB tiles. That's the proprietary Esri scheme. It's supported by a lot of people. We do not support that at this point. So I'll be showing you the ones that we support here in just a minute or two. But anyway, that's why there's all this emphasis on tiling. It's something that you don't even notice when you do your work, and hopefully it'll stay that way, that you won't be noticing these things. Okay, so when you're working in Strabo2, Nick has talked about this, and I'll be showing you a couple things more with this. You actually have a directory in Strabo2 that contains the tiles for offline use. And Rip was asking earlier, and other people have asked about how do you transfer tiles and projects. It's all contained here, and I'll be showing this a little bit today, but mostly in a demo tomorrow, since it seems to be pretty important. So this is the file structure. This is one offline map, and then Mapbox Satellite is something that that we support, and we'll talk about what that is in just a little bit. So this is looking in that Mapbox tile directory, and this naming scheme looks awful. It is, but it's standard. And basically what it does is it names something with a level of download. And I think what you can see here is level 0 here is the world, and you keep zooming in more and more and more as you get down to levels. For example, in this project, I was downloading to level 14. That's why all these are there. But what Strabo2 does is it says, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to load tiles for a couple levels above that, so that if you do zoom out and offline, you don't just get a blank screen. You always get some kind of map. If you're working, for example, here in California, and you wanted to go over to North Africa here, you wouldn't see much of anything, probably 2 or 3 pixels, but still there would be something shown on the screen. So this is what's stored in tiles. And for a lot of projects that I work on, you'll have tens of thousands of these tiles stored for a map area. This is the tiling scheme, just to show you kind of where you go from here. So the big thing here is meters per pixel at the equator. So to get down to about a meter per pixel, you need a tiling scheme that's at level 17. And these are general levels that are used in this scheme. If you do a level 17 on one system, it'll be the same as another. The thing is that for these, the number of tiles you need is 4 to the power of the level. For a file at 20, it looks like you need meg, gig. You'll need like a petabyte of tiles, which is an awful lot for the entire world. Most of the time when I'm working, I go down to level 19 for whatever area I'm in. The level also depends on the size of the pixels in your original image. This is from Mapbox, so it's the Mapbox support, but we'll get to a couple other ones here in just a second. Okay, so that's basically size and amount of data that you could, or number of tiles you could expect to get. All right. So how to get and keep tiles for offline use. When you're online, you don't have a problem, but for offline, there are 3 main tile servers that we use. One is called Mapbox, one is Map Warper, and the last is Strabo My Maps. And I'll show examples of all of these. And all the tiles are served in the proper scheme. They're all done the way we've shown, and they always go from level 0 to 19 or 20. Sometimes you can go beyond that if you want, but finer doesn't actually get you any more data in most cases. You must use the save map for offline use at the 3-dot menu on the lower left. I'll be doing that in just a couple of minutes. And as Nick said, downloading can take a while for 8,000 tiles. So whenever I'm doing tiles here, like he said, I'm always at a very, very fast internet site. So if you're out in the middle of nowhere, you can hope that you have Starlink. If not, then I would go to a library or something. And I'm going to do a demo here of all these features in just a sec. But before I start that, just want to see, does anybody have any questions? Let's see here. Let me get done with sharing here. Nick, can you, I didn't make anybody co-host, sorry. There we go. All right. All right, let me grab an iPad here and get started here in Strabo2. Okay, it started. Let me first, I'm going to go to showing these different map services that you can use and where they come from. So let me go to share screen. Again, find the right screen. Just a second, let me, yep. Okay, I'm going to start with Map Warper. And Map Warper is a service that a fellow named Tim Waters, who is at the New York City Library System, runs. And this is a system he designed for serving and rectifying and working with maps and map mosaics of all kinds. You can see up at the top, it's at mapwarper.net. Basically, you can upload any image and rectify it and then serve the tiles out. So for example, I'm just going to go, this is maps that have been updated. Let me see what the most recent update is that have been updated. So 14 minutes ago. And you can download any of these that you want to look at. If you go to my account here, I have a bunch of different maps in here, and I'll show this one done 1977. And what this one is, it was actually a snapshot pulled out of a paper that was on my computer when I was out in the field. So I decided I needed this for a backdrop map to use. So really all I did was pull it out. I uploaded it to Map Warper. I went to the rectify function And what I did there is put in 4 control points. And what the map warper does is it will allow you to work with these, put in control points. It supports different map backgrounds, again, from it uses ones that are from Mapbox, and you can add rectification points. You can warp the image, and then it appears here. You can move it up and down. You can look at it on satellite, for example, if you wanted to. There are a lot of nice ways you can do this and get your map rectified. And then go back here. I can take this map now and I can export it immediately to a GeoTIFF. And you can see it down here. It's a few megabytes, 10 megabytes. Now it's on downloaded to my computer. So this is Map Warper. You can see up here, there's a map ID. That's the only thing you need to remember is that map ID. Okay, so then there is Mapbox, and Mapbox was just coming into existence when Strabo Spot started. We used them at the beginning because one of the Strabo Spot initial developers went to work for Mapbox. There were about 8 employees in 2013. Now I think there's like 800 employees at Mapbox. A lot of the different maps that you get served are served out of Mapbox. It's a really nice setup. You can get your own account on it. It's free. The part for Strabo Spot is free. And you can see here on the screen here, I've got these tokens. Those are basically things that you enter into your preferences in Strabo Spot. Mapbox lets you create pretty cool maps. So this is an example of Mapbox Studio with a topo image behind it. I could, for example, say, okay, I really want a contour map on top of the topos. Maybe I want to put, let's see where roads, I could put roads on it with labels. It's essentially a full GIS system that you can design your own maps in. And then those maps, once you have that token, again, can be served to Strabo Spot. So that's Mapbox, and it's a very nice system. This is Strabo, my maps. You've seen this before. Basically, you can upload maps here. So I'm going to add a new map. It's a GeoTIFF that I've gotten from Map Warper called Barco. I open that. Oops, not logged in. Okay, sorry. Let me go to my account and log in. I've been doing too many different windows here. Okay, so add new map. I'll grab Barco again. It uploads the map and then I can see where it is. And then I get this ID that then I can put into, I'm gonna copy this. So I can put this into Strabo Spot. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing here. Those are the basic places that you can get in. Does Map Warper support multiple datums and projections easily? Yeah, you ultimately, for Strabo Spot and for Map Warper and almost any system, have to get to WGS84 datum. As long as you can add your control points in your datum of choice, you're fine. But you should try to get to WGS84 for doing that. If that doesn't make any sense to you, it's fine, don't worry about it. For you, you would just bring an image into Map Warper and then you'd get the map on the side and you'd start picking corresponding points and it'll take care of it for you. Any other questions that should be answered here? Map Warper is free, and Strabo Spot is free too. Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen for my iPad. So hopefully you're seeing now a map that is the Central Mojave Desert. So Lake Mead, you can see up there, this is a project. This is actually the first Strabo Spot project created over 6 years ago, and it still works just fine in the newest version of Strabo Spot. So on the left here, under maps, I have custom maps, image-based maps, manage offline maps. Let me just show you custom maps first. So these are ones that I put in here. If I click here to add a custom map, I can give it a title, which is required. And then it's a Map Warper map. For Map Warper, the only thing I have to add is the Map Warper ID. And I will turn here and save this map. So now I've added the map to this file. So if I look at the custom map, you can see the last one down here is called Barco, which is the one I just added. Somebody asked, can you see the offline maps? Whenever you're online or see the online maps, you get a list of your custom base maps. So if I click down on Barco here, it selects that, and then it zooms me into the area associated with it. So this is the Barco map that I just added here. And if I want to then save this for offline use, I go to the 3-dot menu on the left, and second thing down is Save Map for Offline Use. When I do that, 12 is the current zoom level. You can see as I go up in levels, I get different numbers of tiles to download. I'm just going to download 281 here. I'll click the download button. It prepares the data. This is all done on the server side. And what it's doing now is going out to Map Warper. It's saying, I want these data. And maybe this is good. Okay, there we go. It downloads it and installs it into my system. So now if I go in here, and right now you can see in the upper right, this little cloud button, that means it's online. If I go ahead and go to airplane mode now, you can see it's offline now. It goes to my current location, but if I go to custom maps and click Barco here, oops. Sorry. If I, come on, clues. Oh, shoot. Okay. If I go here and go to my map layers again, you can see that Barco is now listed with 281 tiles as an offline custom map. And if I click on the Barco icon, then I'm offline now. You can see with the cloud with the slash through it. And now I've worked with this as Barco is offline. If I zoom in a lot, I don't get any added detail because I haven't loaded any finer tiles than that. So that's a custom map and an offline map. I have also Mapbox Satellite loaded here. So if I go again, I'm offline, I could go to Mapbox Satellite. Again, in here, as Nick showed earlier, I've just downloaded a portion of it. And if I do go out to the world, I do see something. But again, I could download more and more higher levels to right here. So then if I go back online again, now when I zoom in, it continues to zoom in to finer and finer levels. And then of course, if I wanted this area for offline use, I could download that as well. I'm not going to do that, but anyway, that's how you bring offline maps in. You need a good internet connection if you're downloading a lot of them while you're offline. You can add any custom map that you want. And while you're online, you can set the map as an overlay with different opacities. So for example, taking this map, I've got set to that level. Now, if I click the map here, I go to the area that map is in, and I have the done map here showing through as well. And I get different map layers through here. Okay, I think I'm going to stop there. That's a lot of stuff all at once. You are able to pull all of these things in. I wanted to show one more quick thing for everybody, and that is there is a help system for Strabo Spot. If you go to the strabospot.org website and go under help, there's a Strabo help manual. There's a lot of different workshops here that have information from them, but the Strabo Spot help is currently only for version 1, but it has some nice things in it that you can use. For example, there's a part in here that explains how projects are set up. We had some questions about how data sets and projects were set up. That's all outlined in here. And then also outlined in here will be creating custom maps in Map Warper and getting them out as well. So let me stop sharing screen. And I haven't been looking at questions, but anyway, that's where we're at. The 128 gigabyte version, which I think is the base storage, should be fine unless you're, oh, that's from Nick, sorry. So on storage, when we're buying new iPads for use with the KU Field Camp, or I'm buying them, I usually buy the minimum storage device. And I've never run out of storage room on any of these. Most map areas, if you had a gigabyte of stored tiles, you'd have a lot. The thing about those tiles is not only do they come in small sizes, they also usually come in as JPEGs. So if you're dealing with black and white maps, the tiles themselves are minuscule by the time they're compressed into a JPEG format. Other questions that I haven't seen in here? Okay, any questions on any of this at this point, or any questions for Nick? Nick, do you want to add anything for offline maps?
Yeah, just to reiterate that map overlays are really only an online feature right now. So if you are planning to go into the field without internet connection, don't use the map overlay feature. So just use the maps, and yeah, because you can't download those offline as overlays.
Okay, Christina, for classroom setting, you can have students download their own maps. I'm going to do a demo tomorrow on how to take a whole project with all of its offline maps and give it to somebody. So that demo is coming tomorrow. And then Liz, is there a workshop on how to use Mapbox? Yes, at Mapbox. Mapbox is pretty complicated, but extremely powerful. And if you go to the Mapbox website, you can get a free account, and then you can start designing your own maps. The other thing you can do at Mapbox if you want is you can upload any GeoTIFF or any registered, I think probably GeoPDFs as well, and you can stylize those. So I've gone in there, uploaded custom imagery and put topo lines across the top of them, for example. Can Strabo import data from Clino? Not that I know of. Clino uses a proprietary format that we don't know how to read. If you get your Clino data to shape files, I think you can do that now. You can bring the shape files into Strabo, but I don't think the Clino scheme can be read directly.
Suzanne asked, can you modify the contrast brightness of other features of them or other features of the maps? No, there's no. So that you would want to do beforehand if you, that's something that you can do in Mapbox. You can reduce the contrast of, say, satellite imagery. So you would want to do that beforehand if you feel that's something you want.
Yeah, it's not a GIS in the sense of doing any sort of image processing on it. You do all that ahead of time.
When offline, will saved offline maps show up in the map layer icon?
Yes.
Yes, and only offline maps will show up. So all your online maps, the maps you only have access to online, will disappear when you're offline.
And you only have access to the levels that you've downloaded. You know, one thing on Strabo and uploading and downloading, I know for myself, I've been not so much anymore, but in the past frustrated by how long uploading and downloading takes. But then I go ahead and compare that to if I'm uploading or downloading from iCloud a couple gigabytes of photographs, and it's essentially the same thing. If you're dealing with large numbers and sizes of images, it's going to be slow. The spots themselves are very, very fast. I mean, usually they're almost instantaneous unless you have a 10,000 spots. It's pretty quick, but the images, when you're talking about conveying hundreds of megabytes or gigabytes of data, it's just slow.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you upload data that is saved in a KML or GeoJSON format? At this point, no. We haven't put that support in. We've basically have support for, I'm just going to go over to my account real quick and read off all the support. You can bring in shape files. Right at this point, we're mainly bringing in from externally shaped files.
Yeah. So the workflow that I've used when I had like a KML is to transform that KML into a shape file in a GIS program. It's not the most elegant thing, but that's, you know, it's each one of these kind of tools requires actually kind of a lot of work to put that in. So we settle on shape files just because it's one of the most universal GIS formats.
So for Colleen, when I'm offline, I can only see the last set of tiles I downloaded. And when I go to manage offline maps, I see no offline maps. What am I doing wrong? Maybe you're not saving the offline maps from the 3-dot menu. I'll look at this in a couple minutes when we get off and see if I can replicate that, or and we can do this. We've got a break scheduled. Our post-break period is not too long, so why don't we do this? Why don't we break till 20 or 25 past the hour, Nick?
Let's do 20 past the hour.
20 past the hour. And then Colleen, if you want to stay online and share your screen, share your iPad screen, if you can plug it in, we can just talk about that. Or you can come to the help desk a little bit later today. So let's take a break now till 20 past, and anybody who wants to ask questions, stay online, please do. Can you show how to upload shape files? I guess I'll go ahead and, is it okay with you, Nick, if I do this? And Colleen, are you gonna share, or are you just wanting to look at this for a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead, Doug.
Okay. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen again. There we go. All right, so I'm at my Strabo2 account now, and I can load a shapefile. Shapefiles are funny because shapefiles are not files, they're folders with files in them. So basically you have to have your shapefile as a zip file. So I can select a project. Let me just do test. And then I can choose a shapefile folder that's zipped up. I'll choose one. I know this one will work. Actually, this is one from Terry Pavlis, who's here. So I'm gonna open, well, no, I better do my own. I'll open this thing called PanamentShapes.zip. I open that, and then I submit that. It tells me what components of the shape files are there. So there's a units, contacts, and points. I hit submit on that. And then for the units, it says, okay, the shapefile has these columns in them. What should I call those in Strabo2? Here's where things get pretty wild. Basically, at this point, you have all your different options that you can bring in for Strabo2. So I'm going through tabular zones, fabrics, folds, etc. I'm going to just keep going through this. It's pretty unwieldy, but it'll work. So I want to get to rock units and then unit label. So notes. Let's see, probably go down here to units again and notes. I'm not going to worry about shape length, range, and formation. Almost certainly goes to, oops, down to rock units, unit or formation name. So I can click submit here and it reads it in. Okay, and then I can go to contacts. And I'm just going to, this would be under traces. Again, this is not, you just have to rock through this, trace quality. And I'm just going to do that one. And then it loads in. Okay, continue to points, and points has strike and dips. And now, because the names are close enough, the Strabo2 actually recognizes that strike is strike, dip is dip, and rake is rake, trend and plunge are there. So For some items, if they're close enough to a Strabo name, it'll auto match for you. But strike type, for example, is probably planar feature type here. And if I decide that dip really isn't dip, I could change it to anything else that I wanted. I'm just going to go ahead and submit this. Oops. Output driver, field name. Okay, please try upload again. So that's a good thing. I haven't done this one. We will get that one reported out. But if I go back to my data now, and I go to test, you can see I have Panamint units and Panamint contacts. This is the desktop part. I'll be showing this tomorrow, but I can bring a map up now for that project. And I can show, this is basically a clone.
We can't see the pop-out window.
Oh, we can't see the pop-up. That's a good point. Thank you. Let me stop share and start share again. See if I can find the pop-up. Now, are you seeing a pop-up with current project?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is this is basically a Strabo2 interface. This interface is not going to be changing anytime soon. But now I can look at this on a map. So here we have the Panamint area displayed, and then I can go to the various spots here, and you can see I can click on those and get any of the information that transferred over. And then, for example, if I want notes here, I could bring in notes as well. And then I can, of course, then look at any of these and zoom on them to the map. I know this is pretty quick, but this is something we'll see more of tomorrow. But that's how you bring shape files in.
Scott's asking to clarify the size of iPad needed. Yeah, 32 gigabytes is getting pretty small, mostly just in terms of the fact that with the operating system and a few apps loaded and some pictures, you quickly start getting to kind of fill at least half of that just without even trying. So I would say that 64 gigabytes, I didn't realize they still sold a 32 gigabyte version, but 64 gigabytes is totally adequate, especially for students who aren't going to be downloading a ton of apps. It's going to be pretty limited. Yeah, and then if you're getting an iPad for yourself where you also do want to have all of your other things on it, then I would go up to the 128 gigabyte version.
Yeah, our student versions are usually small. Remember too, if you're buying an iPad, you need to buy the iPad that's cellular enabled. If you don't have cellular enabled, then basically the GPS doesn't work offline.
Yeah, in other words, Wi-Fi only iPads don't have a GPS unit in them. They only get their location from Wi-Fi. So if there's no Wi-Fi, then you don't have a location.
That's you do not have to get a cellular plan. You don't have to have cell service at all, but you have to get the enabled model to get the GPS. I guess the other thing is I would recommend at this point going with an iPad Pro. We have tested Strabo. It gets tested on everything from minis to pros. It gets a little sluggish with hundreds and hundreds of spots on a mini, whereas on pros it tends to continue to function quite well. We have not tried yet. We have not got a hold of one of the new the latest generations of iPads. We'll do that this summer and see how performant that is.
Yeah, I use an older iPad Pro, so it's, but it's from 2017 or so. And so now I think that the base level iPads are equivalent or better. And it is for most projects still totally sufficiently snappy and stuff. So if you're on a budget and you are buying a bunch of iPads for a class, the iPad minis or the base level iPads will run it well. It's just that if you're kind of building a project over years for research, then we would suggest that you go for an iPad that has a bit more computational power.
If you end up and you have just a lot of minis, or you have a lot of iPhones or Android phones that you use, then you can still download and use Strabo2. It's still supported. And Strabo2 will be supported, we're planning on, through this calendar year.
Hey, it's Colleen here.
Hi.
Hi, can I just ask you to go through that offline map flow again? Because I really am not clear on what I'm doing wrong, but
All right.
I'm doing something wrong.
All right, so hopefully you're going to see my device here. Oh, sorry, I got to get the screen open. Okay, so I've got the map here now. This is Mapbox topo version. I'll go to the 3-dot menu, and then you can see just down here there's Save Map for Offline Use. I'll click on that, and I'm just going to download 31 tiles. I'll say, okay, download. And it goes through, it downloads them, then it installs them, and then you get the success. You need to hit continue. And now if I go to manage offline maps on this side, then you can see I have 31 tiles for Mapbox topo. I can view the offline map, and I see that here. Then I can stop viewing offline map. And let me go ahead and go to
Well, can I just interrupt here?
yeah.
So when I follow along, and when I go to manage offline maps, it says there are no offline maps.
So you successfully got through this part and had to continue?
Yes.
Oh. So did you download the version of Strabo2 you're using from the App Store?
Yes.
Did you have a pre-existing version of Strabo2 on your iPad?
Yes. And
Okay.
I tried to erase it a couple of times, and maybe it's not, I don't see it there anymore.
Okay. Do you have the ability to share
Ooh,
your screen?
I don't.
Okay.
No.
What I would do is I would try uninstalling and reinstalling
And
one more
reinstall. Yeah. Okay.
time. I don't know. That's one of will. Which version of Strabo Spot are you using? If you go to this menu and you do About Strabo Spot, so that was on the settings and preferences. The last line is About Strabo Spot.
Oh, now it says version 1.0.1.
That's what it should say.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing I can suggest at this point is uninstall and reinstall. What type of device are you using? I mean, what iPad are you using?
It's a mini.
And what OS do you have on it? iOS, do you know?
Yes. Do I know? 14.5.1. It's up to date.
That's the latest. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
I'll
try.
I would suggest one of two things. If you're available during the help desk, you should come to that, and we can walk through. We can share an iPad screen and walk through everything that you're doing. Or if you can't come to that, we can meet with you at a different. Just contact me and we can set up a Zoom to walk through that. Because it might
All
be,
right.
it might also be that you've caught a bug with the particular way that you went through it. So it's important to get to the bottom of that.
Okay, I'll try and reinstall it, and we'll talk later. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, it's 23 past. Nick, do you want to go through navigating spots, notebook, and home menus?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Chat up. All right. So we've shown you little snippets of how Strabo works and given you a general tour of different sections of it. And now I want to spend 10 or 15 minutes looking at just in the field what it's like to interact with spots, create new spots, look at the spots that you've already created. So I have a project here, and the first thing that I want to show you is just how you access a spot that you've already put down on the map. So it's pretty simple. If I just tap on this spot, for example, it gets surrounded by a little green highlight. And that means that that spot is the currently selected spot. If I, in the top right-hand corner of the screen up here, if I tap on that, it opens the selected spot in the notebook. So that's kind of first order getting to a spot. And what opens up is what we call the spot overview page. So it shows all of the data that's been collected at this spot. If I want to see a picture closer up, I can simply tap on the picture. Some really nice porphyr class. And I can X out of that, and I can look at any of this data. A bunch of people caught, we have a bug here, which is that you can't press on the I. Basically, all of the information, these little information buttons will cause the app to quit. So we'll fix that in the next version. Then if you want to add data to the spot, you can use any of these tools down at the bottom. So if I have one measurement there, if I want to add another measurement, I simply tap on that tool. On the left, what I'm moving around here, that's kind of the data input window. But on the right is now it's gone from the notebook overview to only showing the type of data that I'm currently inputting. And I can return to the notebook overview by tapping this return to overview at the top of the screen at any time. So if I wanted to add some planar features to this, I could just tap on the compass and it would add a bunch of features. And now when I return to overview, you see I have added several measurements, and it appears and updates in the notebook overview. A couple other things to note about the notebook overview page is these three dots in the upper right-hand corner. So I'll just circle that with my mouse. These three dots in the upper right-hand corner give you some actions that you can do to spots. So you can copy the whole spot. You can zoom to this spot on the map. You can delete it, or you can show the nesting, or you can close the notebook. You can also close the notebook by tapping on this now blue selected notebook icon, and that closes the notebook. Copying the spot is something that can be quite useful if you're putting in very similar kinds of information over and over again, and you just want to make small modifications. And I believe it just copies, it copies the spot to the same, kind of without a location, And then I can click here, set to my alert, set to location or set in current view. And so if I set in the current view, I can say, well, it's a point spot and I want to set it there. So you can copy spots, and that can make, depending on your workflow, that can make things a lot faster. Okay, so I'm going to cancel that. And then that's a fake spot that I just created. So I'm just going to go up here to the spot actions, and I'm going to say delete this spot. Okay, so someone's asking about subspots and nesting. And so that actually is a great segue, because that's what I was going to talk about next. So I'm going to close the notebook here. I'm going to tap anywhere on the map. I've now deselected any spot. I'm going to zoom into this location where you can see I have a polygon spot and 2 point spots. So I can tap on that polygon spot. It's now selected. And if I open up the notebook view, this is what's inside of that spot. That's great. But there are 2 point spots that are contained within this polygon spot. And so there, as we've talked about, there must be some kind of nesting going on or subspots going on. If I click just directly on, so I just clicked on the map to select just the point spot. So that's now selected. You can see this. That spot is now in the notebook view. And if I click on the top right at those 3 dots and I see the spot actions, I can say show nesting. And what it does is it creates a little visual for you to show you. It has dark lines around the spot that you're currently selecting. And it shows you any super spots, so spots that contain it, or subspots, meaning spots that are within it. So this gives you a sense, if you're doing a workflow that uses a lot of subspots and nesting, then this is a way to show kind of where that spot is in that hierarchy. There is another way to do spot nesting, and that is by, I'll go to a something with a photo. So this has a photo. That's by adding spots to a photo. So here, there's a photo of some really nice crenulations, and I can simply toggle on this button, use image as base map. And when I do that, I get this option to view the image as a base map. And when I click that, so I just clicked view image as base map, this blue text. Now this picture is a map, is loaded in the map. And I can, maybe I want to put an observation there. And maybe I want to, here, I'll draw a polygon, another area of interest. So now if I select that point spot and I go to spot show nesting, you see that that spot is within a polygon spot, which is on a base image. And all of that is contained within that overall polygon on the map.
If you
So that's
click
kind of
the
how
other
you can create.
spots, what happen? The other levels here, what happens? Are you going to show that?
Can you repeat that?
If you click, say, stop 5, what would happen?
So if you click stop 5, then that loads stop 5 into the notebook view. In other words, when I return to overview, I'll be returning to the overview of that spot. So if I return to overview, it returns to, this is the spot that was on the map. It does not load the map. This will be here. This, the loaded image will be here until you hit that X in the lower left-hand corner. But when you do, you see that the thing that's displaying in the notebook is the selected spot. So now if I go to nesting, it says, it tells me that the spot that's selected, which is stop 5, has things one level down, right? But it also has, it's within a polygon one level up. And if I click on that one level up, then on the map it gets selected. And now my notebook view is going to show that one level up polygon. Yes, to answer Liz's question, the nesting is automatic. So there's nothing, it's basically, we're doing a little calculation and saying, okay, show me all of the, let's figure out which point spots are within this polygon. And then that nesting is done automatically for you. So I have seen nesting, and I've used this in the past. I've seen some people will say, well, I want to put a polygon over this little area in the field area just because I think that this is kind of, I want to kind of group it. And you can then go to that spot and see all the spots that are within it pretty easily. So that's one potential use of polygon spots. But just so to clarify though, lines don't contain any other spots, right? So if I drew this line, it looks like a polygon, but it's not a polygon, right? It's a line, so it doesn't contain any spots. So if I go to the nesting of this spots, it has 0 subspots in it. So that's something to be kind of aware of, that only polygon spots can contain subspots.
If you took a picture and put the picture associated with that line, couldn't you also have spots in the picture that were nested with the line?
Right, right. So you can still put subspots in this line through that image base map that I showed by taking a picture, loading it into the map, and adding spots on it. But there's no automatic geographic subspotting that's done with lines. Okay, so how am I doing on time? I'm doing okay, I think.
You're good.
So that is kind of the overview about how to get how to understand how spots are being nested. You basically never have to worry about it though. So all nesting is being done this way. Yeah, and Rip is making a good comment that you can draw, and I've done this too in the field, draw a polygon around measurements that all are part of a large scale fold or a small scale fold on a picture. And it will, that's a nice way for you to group that and say, hey, this was all a fold. Okay, so if I want to add pictures to a spot or a sketch, I go to this images icon in the lower right. And I have a few options. I can import a picture, I can take a picture, or I can create a sketch. And importing a picture will bring up your photo library on your iPad, just the Photos app photo roll. And so you can navigate through your albums or your normal just photo roll and select pictures. You can also, if you click take a picture, here I have a nice bookmark of the Grand Tetons behind my iPad. So you can just take a picture, and you can take multiple. So I'm going to click use photo, but then it comes back up. So I've taken one photo, but maybe I want to take a few others. I'll click use photo. I'll do it one more time. Use photo. And then I'm just going to say cancel. This is a little weird. You're saying cancel, but you're just canceling the photo that you haven't taken yet. So there will be 3 photos that show up. So we built this so that you can take multiple photos without entering the camera and then exiting the camera, entering the camera, exiting the camera. You can also create a sketch. So if I create a sketch, I tap that sketch button, it comes up with our very rudimentary sketch tool. If you want to do more complicated things, there are many apps that allow you to do highly detailed sketching, and then you can save it to your photo library and upload it to Strabo through a photo. But we decided, just based on the resources that we want to spend, that we would just use a very simple, so you can draw, the lines are nice and smooth. You can pick different colors, and there's an eraser. So and you can choose the size of the eraser and the pen. So it's very rudimentary, but when you hit save, then there it is. And the same tool is used to annotate photos. So if I click in a photo, there's this button in the lower right-hand corner, annotate. If I click that, it loads it into that same sketch tool, and I can choose to put in some drawn annotations. And when I hit save, it does not overwrite the photo. It actually saves a new photo, a new version of that photo with the annotations over it. Okay, are there any questions on that? So if I want to, let's say that I'm back at the hotel or the campsite at the end of the day in the field, and I want to just peruse what I've done, we've built in the settings and preferences, so top left corner, we have this attributes area. So you can see spots, images, and samples. And I showed this a little yesterday, but I'm just going to show it again. If you go to spots, then it shows you, it shows you all of the spots in the project, and it shows you them in an order of your choosing. So you can show them in reverse chronological order. So the most recent at the top. You can view them only the spots within the map extent. So if you zoom into the map, that list will get shorter because there are fewer spots on the iPad's map. Or you can view them just by the spots that you've recently opened. So if you want to get back to a spot that you recently looked at. I really think that the map extent is the most useful for me, because I often, you go zoom out to your map area, you know where you were, but you just can't remember which spot it was. And this is a decently long list of spots. So you can just zoom in and you can start to see all the spots. And you can see the types of data that were in those spots by these little icons. So there's a measurement and a note at spot 25, for example. And if you want to open that spot, you just tap and it opens that spot in the notebook. And the nice thing is that, we're visual people, so you can also do the exact same thing for images. If you know that you know the image you're looking for, but you can't remember what spot it is, you can view images by map extent. You can start zooming out and you can say, oh, it's this, this granitic dike map. That's the one that I want to see because it has the picture that I remember. You click view and spot, and here you can see everything that's in that spot. And it's the same thing for samples. So if you know a sample that you're looking for, but you can't remember what spot it's in, you can look at all the samples and then view in the spot. Doug, is there something else that you want me to cover here?
I can't think of anything. That's just fantastic. I can look at nesting all day, actually. So that's just me.
Yeah.
Is there any questions? I miss how to get to the drawing tool. Can you do the drawing tool again?
Yeah, sure. So to get to the drawing tool, I have a spot selected up here. So I will just open the notebook, and the drawing tool is in the general images tool. So down here, click that, and then there are three options. You can take a photo, import a photo, or make a sketch. So that's how you get to the drawing tool. If you want to annotate a photo, you tap on the photo, And then there's an annotation tool in the bottom right, a little pencil on a piece of paper. If you tap that, then it brings that photo up in the drawing tool so you can annotate over it.
Could you go ahead and go back to that photo and do the notes part just to show what's on there?
Sure. So yeah, so if you, this is kind of, you can name the image, you can say the type of image that it is. So, you know, this one's a photo. You can show the scale of the overall image. So just estimate the field of view that you're looking at. So in this case, it might be 30 centimeters or something. You can also manually input the camera orientation or the orientation of the view subject.
And the one thing I wanted to add with that, Nick, is that we'll see in Strabo tools tomorrow that actually captures all the orientation information. And we're going to eventually add that functionality to the Strabo Spot camera. We just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah. Yeah. So Michelle is asking, is there a way to set up a naming convention for spots that fills in some useful spot name automatically, like the date, number, etc.? Not currently, but that is an area that we've basically, we created a simple, a bare bones way to name spots, and so there is nothing stopping us from doing that. I will say that the date, the time, the exact time and date that you created the spot is stored, so it would not be hard to do that. And the same goes for any note that you make. The date and time of that is stored in the data system.
Go ahead and show the photo one more. Click out of there. This is a little nerdy, but go take a photo. Just, I hate to have you add a photo, but yeah, cool. And you can see the number at the top, 16160. That's the unique ID for this, and that is the time since 1970 in milliseconds with a random digit, which is called Unix time. And basically, every time you create a spot, it gets a label like that. That's a unique identification, unless you can add more than a few spots per millisecond, you're probably okay.
Okay, you're getting an error about the units of view and trying to label the scale in Sketch. So I will just try to quickly. Is it this scale of overall image that you did, Liz?
Yeah, I tried adding the scale of the overall image and the scale and type of object and image. And then when I did width of image view, that was the error that when I got the error.
Okay, width of image view, so 10.
That's it.
Go to the line above it where it says scale, and yeah, put in M there.
Yep, we need to fix that.
Yep.
I think we're missing a field that says the unit. Yep. Good catch.
Thanks. You can count on me to find all the problems.
Well, this is exactly why we do these things, right? So that's awesome. Oh, one other thing, information about your GPS location. If you tap on the GPS location at the top of the image, it will show you the latitude, longitude. I had entered these manually because it's from an old data set. But if you entered the spots using the iPad GPS, your GPS accuracy would be automatically filled in altitude as well. So that's where you access the geometry. If I were to add a spot, if I were to add a spot onto this image, say, the image is within spot 21, which has a GPS coordinate. But if I create a new spot, if I place it there, now that's spot 45. It's on an image contained within spot 21. And notice what the geometry, meaning the GPS coordinates, look like. It inherits the GPS coordinates of the parent spot, so where the photo was taken, but it also has the pixel coordinates of the photo. So it orients itself on the photo, but that stop does inherit the GPS coordinates of the spot that contained the photo. Okay, I think we're getting sufficiently in the weeds that maybe we can move on to the next thing. What do you think, Doug?
Okay, sounds good. I'll go ahead and share my screen again. And now I'm just going straight into a project out in Colorado. So this is part of the KU Field Camp area near Colorado Springs. And I'm going to show you here quickly how you use tags and label those. One thing I do want to show you before we go on is down here, you have this little geolocate button. When I click that, it puts me to my current location. And I can click it off or I can click it back on. One thing I'll tell you is that the geolocation will turn itself off after a few minutes. And the reason is that we did a bunch of work last summer. Geolocation tends to really eat batteries. And so the only time we ever had any power issues is keeping geolocation on all the time. And that causes issues. So that's why this will turn off eventually. So now I'm going to go ahead and zoom to the extent of my spots. And I'm going to zoom into this area down here. And you can see a whole bunch of strikes and dips here. So the star between the 3 dots and the map layers is where you start to set display parameters. And you can turn on and off foliations, intersections, different types of lineations. For example, bedding I can turn off. And I'll see no bedding on there. I can take faults and turn them off, and they aren't going off right now, but that's okay. If I go in here and I click all symbols, then it basically displays everything. And then, oh, those are point measurement spots that I just turned off. And then you can see symbol labels and then show tag color. I'm going to go ahead and put all symbols on. Symbol labels, again, are going to be strike and dips. There's a dip for a single spot. I'm going to zoom up here. If you have multiple dips at a single spot, multiple measurements, it actually just overwrites them. You can then click on the spot to see how many measurements you have at that particular spot, a lot for this particular one. But the nice thing here, zooming in a little bit, is that I can go in here and show tag color. And with tags, we talked a little bit yesterday, you can have geologic units or concepts. So a geologic unit is exactly what you expect. And on this map, that is basically these geologic units. If I go back up here and I go to my tags, then these are all unit abbreviations for various geologic units on this map. And again, it's just like you doing a map in the field. You normally will just, I just use abbreviations because you know that, for example, OF with 261 spots in it is the Ordovician Fremont limestone. And then you can see up at the top here, I have the tag color. And I can change that tag color. If I change it to a pink, then you can see all the spots on the map are recolored. If I go to clear custom color, then none of the tags, none of the spots will be colored. So let me go ahead and go back to a bluish purple color. And I find this useful for just looking at the map, period. Because we're not building polygons, you can more or less see your units this way. And if I turn off symbol labels, then I can see patterns of unit colors that I can compare to, say, contacts, faults, and other contacts on the map. And then as we go into these, I don't see any errors, but if, for example, there were, oh, here's good. So this is the wrong unit label, the wrong color. This is in a field called OH, which is the Harding Formation. It's labeled as, tagged as OF. I can simply click the tag at the bottom. I get the list of tags. I'll turn off the OF tag, turn on the OH tag. And now when I look at the map, it's got the right unit color to it. The other thing that you might do is, for example, maybe you've mapped a lot of spots that you've forgotten to tag. If you go to the 3-dot menus, you can add tags to spots. If I click that, you'll see I get a drawing tool here. I can just circle those spots and draw, and then I can get the information over here to add a tag to all those spots if I want. So this is a way that you can relabel spots, or, for example, let me close this out. I'm not going to do this. All of the spots right in here are on a fold axis. I can go here, oops, not for stereo net, but add tags. Oops, sorry. I could, for example, circle those and draw. Oh, it still thinks it's doing stereo net. Now I have these, I could create a new tag if I wanted. A second. Ooh. I can change this to a concept, and then I could give it a name if I wanted, and I'm going to cancel out of that. Let me close this. One other thing I want to show, just take a second here. I'm going to go to a spot, and I have the keypad here now. If I pull the keypad down, I can flip it so that it's this tiny keypad now that I can use. And if I wanted to, I could click the microphone and enable dictation. And I can start putting in notes this way. So there's a lot of different tools that you can use with this. Am I still talking? It looks like my picture is frozen.
Yeah, we can hear you, but the picture has been kind of a little bit laggy for a few minutes, but we mostly following along.
Sorry about that. But basically, you would have access both online and offline to the normal tools that you would have with iOS for drawing things. And I don't know why it's decided to stop me, but here we go, that's fine. So that's coloring with tags, and that's a little bit more about data entry and some of the capabilities you have. So that's more or less where I'll stop at this point. Are there any questions on this?